serial killers you haven't heard of: the giggling nanny, the co-ed killer, the confession killer, Otis Toole.
Serial Killers You've Never Heard Of, Part 24. America's most prolific serial killer. With more victims than Bundy, Dahmer, and Gacy combined. This is Samuel Little. Sam's life of crime began at a very young age when he dropped out of high school and left his home in Ohio. From there, he lived a nomadic life. He would steal, loot, and do what he had to get by. Like many other serial killers, he chose his victims because they were very easy targets, usually prostitutes and addicts. Police did admit that a lot of the victims flew right under the radar, with a lot of Sam's victims being categorized as overdoses and never fully investigated. He was actively murdering these women from the 70s all the way until 2005, stemming across at least 14 different states. And his rap sheet over the years was over 100 pages long. In 1961, he spent 3 years in prison for breaking into a furniture store. By 1975, he was arrested 26 times in 11 different states. In 1982, he was arrested in Mississippi and charged with murder. But a grand jury declined to indict him, so he walked free. He was then extradited to Florida for another murder case. He was acquitted again. He then moved to California, where he was arrested again in 1984, this time for kidnapping and assault. Just 1 month after that, he was found in the backseat of a car with an unconscious woman. For those two crimes, he served only 2.5 years. He then moved to Los Angeles in 1987, where he committed at least 10 more murders. In September of 2012, he was arrested at a homeless shelter in Kentucky. He was then extradited back to California on drug charges. That is when they were finally able to link him to 3 murders. On September 25th, 2014, he was charged and got 3 consecutive life sentences. But it was his confession from prison in 2018 that shocked the whole country. He confessed to 93 murders, but how did the police know that he wasn't just making this up? Little had claimed to have a photographic memory, which horrifically became true. In great detail, he was able to describe where and when he met his victims, how he killed them, and where he put their bodies, as well as drawing many chilling sketches of the victims. In December of 2020, Samuel Little died at a Los Angeles hospital. He was 80 years old. Now all police can do is try to piece together the rest of the victims and give closure to their families.
In 2011, while New York authorities were searching for answers in the murder of Shannan Gilbert, they uncovered a grave with the bodies of 4 women. Shortly after, they would find another grave with the bodies of 6 more women. Among those identified was Melissa Barthelemy, who had been missing from the Bronx since 2009. And other than a call from an unidentified man saying he killed Melissa, no one has come forward in this case, and they remain unsolved. Salvatore Perrone was a serial killer in Brooklyn who targeted shopkeepers of Middle Eastern descent while they worked. He was convicted of killing 3 Brooklyn shopkeepers. He would stalk the victims with a duffel bag filled with latex gloves, wire cutters, duct tape, and a sawed-off rifle. It took a jury less than 30 minutes to convict him. Lonnie David Franklin Jr., known as the Grim Sleeper because he took a 14-year break in killing from 1988 to 2002, he's said to have killed dozens, maybe hundreds of women, but was only convicted of 25.
This is pretty messed up. You've been warned. This is Joe Metheny, a serial killer claiming to have killed 13 people. He would gut his victims and then mix their flesh with animal meat to sell as burgers at his fast food stand. He said the only time he felt vaguely guilty was when children ate the sandwiches, but even then, Metheny justified his actions by telling himself it was their parents' fault for being so stupid and allowing them to eat it. He was found dead in his cell at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, 2017.
And this morning on Serial Killer TikTok, Joachim Kroll. You probably haven't heard of him, but it's a good story. He was a German serial killer and he killed at least 14 people, including children, between 1955 and 1976. After strangling his victims to death with his bare hands, he would then have with the corpses, and then he would cut them into small pieces to eat. But he was finally caught because a neighbor complained about a backup in the plumbing. The pipes had human guts in them. And when Kroll was arrested, he was in the process of simmering body parts from his latest victim, a 4-year-old, Marion Ketter.
Let's talk about the most prolific serial killers by state. Today we're talking about Indiana and a serial killer I bet you haven't heard of, Herb Baumeister. Herb was a business-owning family man who lived on his 18-acre property known as Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana. He married his wife Julie right after college and they proceeded to have 3 kids together, but Herb had a secret that he wasn't sharing. He often would frequent gay bars 40 miles from his house. While Julie said she never thought that he was gay, she did admit that they were only intimate 5 or 6 times in their 25-year marriage. In 1992, police began investigating the deaths of gay men in the area, and one man who came forward with a tip would lead them to discovering it was connected to Herb. In April of 1995, Julie would allow the police to search their property, which would result in them finding 11 bodies. They put out a warrant for Herb's arrest, but his body would be found in July in Ontario in his car after he shot himself in the head. He's suspected of killing over 20 people.
God's undertow is what keeps me away from you. Late at night I wait on my knees, praying you tell me the truth. There's a ghost in your eyes that is haunted by my youth. I'm restless and I'm worn, so why do I keep collecting memories for 2? You're running from the sun, but in my mind I've been baptized before you. My soul is on fire. You're my one desire, I'm chasing right behind you. Running